The fall of man, Genesis 3:1-24. The fall of man is a story in the book of Genesis that describes the first sin committed by humans and the consequences that followed. The story starts with the serpent deceiving Eve, who then convinces Adam to eat from the forbidden tree of knowledge. This act of disobedience leads to the separation of humans from God and the introduction of sin and death into the world. The story is a powerful tale of the consequences of disobedience and the need for redemption. Introduction. Brief overview of the book of Genesis. Genesis is the first book of the Old Testament and tells the story of creation, the first humans, and the history of the early world. It is an important book that sets the stage for the rest of the biblical narrative. Importance of the story of the fall of man. The story of the fall of man is an important part of the biblical narrative that provides a foundational understanding of sin, death, and the need for redemption. 2. The serpent deceives Eve. Genesis 3:1-6. The serpent's deception of Eve. The story begins with the serpent deceiving Eve into eating from the forbidden tree of knowledge. The serpent tempts Eve by telling her that if she eats from the tree, she will become like God and have knowledge of good and evil. Eve's decision to eat from the forbidden tree. Eve succumbs to the temptation and decides to eat from the tree, despite knowing that it is forbidden by God. This act of disobedience sets in motion the events of the fall of man. 3. Adam disobeys God. Genesis 3:6-7. Adam's decision to eat from the forbidden tree. After Eve eats from the tree, she offers some of the fruit to Adam, who also eats it. Adam's decision to eat from the tree is a direct act of disobedience against God's command. The immediate consequences of their disobedience. The immediate consequences of their disobedience are shame and guilt. They realize that they are naked and try to hide from God. 4. The consequences of disobedience. Genesis 3:8-19. God's response to their disobedience. When God comes to the garden, He confronts Adam and Eve about their disobedience. God pronounces judgment on them, and the consequences of their sin are described in detail. The consequences of sin in the world. As a result of their sin, the world is changed. The ground is cursed, and work becomes difficult and painful. Women are subjected to pain in childbirth, and men must work to provide for their families. Death is introduced into the world, and humans are separated from God. The promise of redemption. Genesis 3:20-24. God's promise of redemption. Despite the consequences of their sin, God does not abandon humanity. He provides a promise of redemption through the birth of a son who will crush the serpent's head and restore the relationship between God and humanity. The hope of restoration in the future. This promise of redemption provides hope for the future and shows that God is not done with humanity. Despite our sin, God continues to pursue us and provide a way back to Him. The story of the fall of man is a story of sin, consequences, and redemption. It provides an understanding of the origin of sin and death, as well as the hope of restoration in the future.